Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining the Singapore Energy Grand Challenge Youth Virtual Mass Briefing. My name is Amy, and I'm from the Energy Market Authority, and I'll be sharing more with you about the competition as well as the Singapore energy transition. Okay, so let's begin. So the Singapore energy transition. Not sure if you heard about this in the last few years, but I'll take you guys through and to really understand about what it takes. So EMA, we are the lead agency for energy matters in Singapore. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but we are a statutory board under the Ministry of Trade and Industry. We hold three main roles. Firstly, as a regulator of Singapore's electricity, gas, and district cooling industries. Secondly, we also serve as the power systems operator. And last but not least, we are the lead agency for energy development. As you can see on the chart on your right-hand side, you might be quite familiar with this on how electricity is actually transmitted to your schools as well as with your homes. From the power plants, it goes through the power grid, and then finally to the consumers. So what does it really mean to be the lead agency for energy development? There are a few areas that we focus into. Firstly is looking at long-term strategies and plans for Singapore. We also look into fostering a dynamic energy sector in our nation. We look into not only the local context, but also international players in the energy arena. And last but not least, we focus onto the driving of development of the pipeline of competent and local manpower for the power and gas sector. And that's why I'm here speaking with you today, because you are our next generation coming into the workforce. So as you know, climate change has always been a hot topic in the news. It's an existential threat, and Singapore is committed to reducing our emissions and advancing the global climate action. You can see the statistics on the left-hand side. These figures are quite high, and it's a big part about not only globally, but locally, we have strategies on how we can be able to reduce our carbon emissions. So what's it like in Singapore? Actually, we have the Singapore Green Plan 2030. It's our whole of nation movement to advance Singapore's national agenda on sustainable development. So there are 5 pillars that really talk about this. The one that I want to zoom into for today is really the energy reset pillar. It outlines our commitments to use cleaner energy and also to increase our energy efficiency to lower our carbon footprint. The different topics that is under this pillar on energy reset is very relevant for our competition today. So one of it is really about looking at cleaner energy vehicles. Secondly, looking into infrastructure in buildings. Thirdly, towns and districts. And last but not least, seeing how we can be able to increase the green energy resources in our nation. So in Singapore, actually our power sector plays a significant role. As you can see in the chart on the right-hand side, up to 40% of the emissions is actually from the power sector. So if we can be able to use technology and find different ways to reduce this in our sector, it will make a big difference into decarbonizing our Singapore future. So how can we be able to decarbonize this? We cannot just focus on one prong approach, but actually we have this thing called the energy trilemma. It's a balancing the need for energy to be clean, reliable, as well as affordable. So the 3 different areas, I'll just touch briefly on it. Firstly is environmental sustainability. So this includes areas of, like catalyzing clean energy R&D as well as experimentalization. See what new areas that we have not been focusing on in the past, but we can be able to put in resources and to prepare for our future. And under sustainability, we also look into energy efficiency measures because a big part of it is not just improving the energy supply, but if we can be able to reduce the energy demand, it will also make a big difference. Secondly, is economic competitiveness. So some areas that we look into is really about liberalizing the energy market. Maybe some of you have heard about the OEM in the last few years, where you can be able to choose your retailers through the open electricity market. We also ensure level playing field in competitive sectors. Last but not least is about energy security. There's 2 areas to look into this. One of it is the energy sources itself, to diversify them, not putting all the eggs into one basket as a phrase. But secondly, it's also human capital. Our manpower and the workforce is actually a big part of our resource. And that's an area that we're always focusing on to see how we can be able to develop and to train the human capital for the new technologies and new needs of our future. So to give you an example, in the past we used coal, and actually coal satisfies two of these three areas of the energy trilemma. It's abundant and it's cheap, so it's helped satisfy the economic competitiveness as well as energy security. But as you know, there's quite a lot of carbon emissions that come out of coal, so it's not very environmentally sustainable. In the last 50 years, Singapore's energy sector has come a long way, moving from oil-powered generating plants all the way to cleaner sources such as natural gas. And even right now, we're moving towards a lot more to solar. These are just some pictures to show you a glimpse of the past. You can see the black and white photos, 1920s to 2000s. Maybe some of you have been to the St. James Power Station. That's near Harbourfront. That's the picture over there. In the 2000s to 2010, that's where we actually move a lot more into natural gas. And in more recent times, we are trying to see how we can be able to increase our cleaner energy resources. Electricity is a key enabler. And that's one area that, it really impacts not only those in the industry, but it supports our day-to-day lives. Can you imagine if you don't have electricity nowadays? The laptop or the phone that you're using to watch this video right now, it also matters, right? We do need electricity. Other sectors that are essential are like healthcare, infocoms and media that rely heavily on the energy sector. So what's it like going to be in the future? In the next 3 years to come, we actually have this multi-pronged strategy that's called the Singapore Energy Transition. So we will be using that to outline the key paths for us to be able to move towards a more sustainable future. A big part of it is really looking at 3 different areas. Firstly is the supply itself, the grid, as well as the demand. All 3 areas need to be tackled so that we can allow a Singapore power system to be secure, reliable, and sustainable. Broadly, the Singapore energy transition actually includes 4 switches, namely natural gas, solar, regional power grids, as well as low carbon alternatives. All of this will be complemented by the larger prong, which is energy efficiency. I'll take us through one by one. So firstly, natural gas. We see that it will continue to be Singapore's dominant fuel source in the near future. A big part of it is that it takes time to scale up alternative options. Even though we want to jump into cleaner energy and the renewable sources, it takes time to be able to build up the technology as well as the workforce for that area. So natural gas will continue to be the dominant. Currently today, about 95% of our electricity is generated from natural gas. We actually import natural gas from our neighbors, such as Malaysia as well as Indonesia. And we also have a Singapore liquefied natural gas terminal on Jurong Island. And that allows us to expand our networks and to be able to get imported natural gas from our furthering than our neighbors. So for example, we actually import natural gas from Qatar as well as Australia. The second area is solar. Solar is our most viable renewable option today. As you can see here in the photos, these are some of the places that we have deployed solar. We are trying to see how we can be able to increase the surface areas that we can be able to deploy these installments. So one of it, maybe you have noticed on top of HDBs, rooftops, those are one areas. We're also looking at reservoir bodies. So like Sembcorp Tengah floating solar farm, there's also an area. We're looking at offshore water bodies, or even looking at vertical solar deployments. There's different ways that we can be able to maximize this. A key goal for us is really to deploy at least 2 gigawatt peak of solar by 2030. And this is aiming to power around 350,000 households. It sounds so rosy and good, right? But actually a big part about solar is its intermittency. A big part of it is that we want our power system to always be reliable. Whenever you plug in your devices, you want electricity to come out. So we don't want one day, at one moment there's solar and the next minute it rains or there's a cloud cover and then we cannot be able to use our electricity again. So what are different technologies that we can look into? One of the areas that Singapore is looking into and investing in is really energy storage systems. To explain, it really works like a large-scale battery, and it can be able to store the solar power and harness it for later use. So when it's sunny and all, you'll be able to store all the excess solar energy, and then when it's raining or cloudy, you can be able to draw from it. Our goal is actually to deploy at least 200 megawatt of ESS beyond 2025. The third area is regional power grids. We're looking into electricity imports so that we can diversify our energy sources. A big part of it is that we can be able to rely on our neighbors that have different geographical advantages that Singapore doesn't have. We are a country that's very small. We are exactly on the equator. So probably like, for example, wind turbines, these things, these technologies cannot be deployed as effectively as compared to the northern and the southern hemisphere. So with electricity imports and working with our neighboring countries, we are looking to import up to 4 gigawatts of low carbon electricity by 2035. This will be significant because it will amount to about 30% of our electricity supply. Over here in this slide, it just lists out some of our trials and some of the projects that are ongoing in the next 3 years. And we can be able to see how we can work together with Malaysia, Indonesia, and the rest of our neighbors. The fourth area is low carbon alternatives. So this technology actually looks at what is more emerging and further term. So just to name a few, we are also looking at hydrogen, geothermal energy, carbon capture, utilization, and storage. And these are the areas that we are trying to do more research on, to have feasibility studies to see whether, in other countries they're using it. What about Singapore? How we can be able to learn and to be able to diversify our fuel mix, to be able to reduce our carbon emissions further. I'll explain a bit more about CCUS. It's usually a term that most people are not very familiar with. So it's actually a process where you capture carbon dioxide produced from emission sources, and then you convert it to more useful products. A large part of this is actually being used in the construction firms. So actually recently, the government actually awarded 55 million to 12 projects that involves hydrogen as well as CCUS under the Low Carbon Energy Research Funding Initiative. We hope through these measures and these projects that we can be able to decarbonize Singapore's power sector further. Last year, we also explored a feasibility study, how we can be able to harness geothermal energy in Singapore, which is going to be pretty new. I know I've been speaking a lot about the energy supply, but we also need to think about the energy demand because both of it work hand in hand. So in the near future, there's a lot of new and emerging electricity intensive sectors. And with the increasing electrification of these sectors, we will see that actually our energy consumption is projected to increase. So just to name a few, one of it is data centers. Maybe you've seen, a lot of bigger companies like Google are coming in, and Facebook are coming in to set up their offices. And all these data centers actually play a big role in our digital economy. They store, they process, and disseminate data that's very important, that's very vital for our economy. But they are also very intensive users on our electricity grid. The second area is on agriculture or aquatech, food production. One of our goals under the Singapore Green Plan is actually to produce 30% of our own nutritional needs by 2030. So as we expand the food production, naturally we will believe that our electricity grid will also be taxed, and then there will be a lot more consumption from this sector. Last but not least is electricity vehicles that maybe some of you have seen it on the road, whether it's the electric bus or even electric cars like just this Blue SG. One of our targets is actually to have 60,000 electric vehicle charging points nationwide by 2030. We also envision that vehicles to run on cleaner energy by 2040. So all of this together is adding more and more energy demand to our grid. I'll just talk a bit more about electric vehicles. So currently right now, when you charge your electric vehicle, it's connected to the main grid and it draws, as just now shared earlier, 95% of it actually come from natural gas. So as we try to find the balance between the energy supply as well as energy demand, a huge factor is to see how we can be able to increase the cleaner energy. If not, then whenever you plug in electric vehicle, you may not actually be getting cleaner energy. You may be just drawing things from the grid. So yeah, so that's a balance that we need to have too as well. The other area about electric vehicles is that we are not able to determine when does the user actually charge the vehicles. So maybe you're at home and you want to charge your vehicle through the night. Then actually that's adding more demand onto the night time when actually everybody else is at home as well. Or maybe you want to charge when you go to the office and everybody that's in town in the city center and their offices are all charging at that point in time. So there may be congestion on the grid at the different various sectors, locations, as well as the time zones. So yeah, so those are all the different considerations that we need to take into account. So just now I'll talk about energy supply as well as the demand. The in-between factor is really the connectivity and the reliability of our national grid. As we try to make our energy sources to be more cleaner and greener and try to reduce our energy demand, that's where the balance lies. If we can be able to make that stable, then that's where the grid will really be able to be reliable and to be able to produce the electricity that we require. I am not sure if all of you are engineering students, but to just share some context, a big part about electricity is that we want it to be balanced at all times in the ideal state. This way, the frequency is consistent, and that way the grid can be reliable. We don't want the energy supply to be really high and the demand to be low. And then there's a lot of gaps, or the other way around is also not ideal. So the best ideal state is to be as balanced as possible. So what we are trying to do in the future is also to see how we can be able to change not only technology, but user consumption patterns. So listed here are just some of the areas that we're looking into. Firstly, we can work with key sectors to manage the growth of electricity demand in Singapore. Secondly is how we can be able to encourage energy efficiency and energy conservation efforts. And last but not least, to develop the flexibility of demand to optimize the supply and the grid capacities. I'll share some examples about flexibility of demand. So you might not be aware, but actually our electricity prices fluctuate throughout the day. They are in half-hour blocks. So there are times of the day where actually there's not a lot of demand and actually our electricity prices are lower. And then when there's high demand, then electricity prices are higher. So Keppel actually has district cooling facilities in some parts of Singapore, such as like Changi Business Park or even the Mediapolis areas. And that is one of the ways that we can be able to be flexible on the demand. So when prices are low, the district cooling networks are able to freeze up the ice and to prepare those cooling. And then when electricity is high, you don't charge it anymore and you don't freeze the ice, but instead you'll be able to release the cold air that has already been stored through those thermal storage. So these are just some of the areas. Other countries beyond Singapore also looks at how they are able to turn off non-essential supplies. So for example, for households, if like you don't need to use the heater at that point of time, or you don't need to use the aircon, washing machines, those are the larger appliances. And if you can be able to time it properly to fit the lower pricing schedules, that will also help to be able to manage the energy consumption as a whole. So you can see there's different areas and a different approach in handling our energy future. And every key aspect actually plays a role in really conserving energy and supporting the greener energy transition for a more sustainable future. Next, I would like to share more with you about Manpower Initiatives that you students can be able to apply to. We categorize it into two areas. So first one is attraction and outreach, which are relevant to students like yourselves. So depending on what school you're from, so for example, if you're from ITE or Poly, actually we have the Energy Industry Scholarship that is applicable for you. If you're from university, we actually have the Singapore Industry Scholarship. Both scholarship application cycles usually open at the beginning of the year until March. Just now I shared more about the technologies and the topics, and you want to find out more information about it, you can actually watch the EMA and MOE Science and Humanities videos. All these are available online, and it goes into the different areas of focus. So for example, just now I mentioned about solar intermittency. We actually have a video that's called Energy Stores and Transfers, and it really talks about energy storage systems and how it's able to be used. I also mentioned about district cooling networks, and we actually have a video that talks about thermal cooling. So if you want to find out more information, that's a resource that's readily available and it's free. We also have other events like career fairs. We go to universities to share more about the energy transition, what are some career prospects in the area. We have at Science Center, we have a permanent exhibit called the Energy Story. So if you're interested, you can go there. It's an interactive exhibit. It talks about the energy transition, the different areas, not only in a local perspective, but also in a global perspective as well. We host competition and events just like this one, Singapore Energy Grand Challenge, or SEGC in short. And for this year, our grand final for the IHL category, as well as the SEGC award ceremony, will be held at Youth at SU. It's our flagship event that we hold annually, really engaging youth like yourself on about energy related issues, and also to connect you to hear from political holders as well as industry players, so that you get a good sense of what is it really like in the energy sector. The areas on the right-hand side is on retention and development. I would think this is more further planning. If you're interested to join us in the power sector, then these are some of the programs they can look forward to. A big part of EMA's work is really seeing how we can be able to train and to develop those that are already in the workforce through leadership programs, through work study programs, career conversion programs, so that we are always upskilled and ready for whatever that may be in our future. I hope this gives a good understanding of what's it like in our energy sector in the past, today, as well as the future that we are moving towards. And hopefully this will give you some good context and background for the competition that's here today. So I think the part that everybody is here to listen more about is really about the competition details. So let's get to it. Singapore Energy Grand Challenge Youth, especially for the IHL category, this year will be our first year. EMA has partnered 3 companies, Keppel Infrastructure, Schneider Electric, as well as Sembcorp Industries for this new category for SEGC. It's open to IHL students. So as long as you're from ITE, Poly, or even one of the autonomous universities, you are able to apply. So technically, if you're able to fill in the form SG and to join us today in one of the schools drop-down lists, then you're in the correct category. I think a big part of our motivation of having this competition is really to share with you students, that there are challenge statements and key issues that we are faced with in the industry. Maybe there are some solutions that we have come up with in areas that we're moving towards, but we would like to hear your voice. You are the next generation, and we would like to hear what new creative ideas there are in tackling these problems that we face today. So each of the problem statements are actually real life situations that the companies do consider and to do formulate plans into their future. So we can work together, both students as well as companies, to form solutions for the real world problems. So what's it going to be like in this competition? I think a key part of it is really to hear from the industry, which we will do today. And there will also be mentoring and training opportunities for the shortlisted teams. I think we will want to encourage, that there's collaborations between the youth as well as the industry to hear from each other and to formulate a good plan and a good proposal and a solution. So the most innovative ideas actually stand a chance to win $10,000 in cash prizes for their solutions for each of the different company specific problem statements. The grand final will actually have 6,000, and then the first runner up will have $4,000 in cash. So these are the problem statements. You probably have seen it already in our competition website. So each of the company statements actually focus on a different topic altogether. So we like to give the youth the choice to choose which of these company statements is the one that you would like to tackle or to contribute to. So for example, like capital infrastructure, they're looking at energy consumption of a typical building. Schneider is looking at the topic of electric vehicles. And Sembcorp is looking at the areas of managing solar intermittency. Without further ado, I think it's good to hear from the industry themselves. So we'll start with capital. Pass the time to Crystal. Probably you can just share a bit about what the challenge statement is about to capital infrastructure, and so that the students will be able to understand better. Over to you, Crystal.
Thanks, Amy. So hi everyone, I'm Crystal from Capital Infrastructure. So as seen in the challenge statement in the slides, Capital is looking at an integrated solution to reduce the energy consumption of a typical building in Singapore through digital tools such as IoT, AI, etc.
I think Capital had a bit of a technical glitch. That's how it's like in life. While waiting for Crystal to come back, could I just check if Ray, you're there? Maybe you could share about Schneider's problem statement and about electric vehicles first.
Yep, hi. Afternoon, everyone. So my name is Ray. I'm actually from Schneider Electric. Basically, from the problem statements, just running through very quickly on the board, is to resolve the current challenge in terms of the increase of the electric vehicles adoption, which we are projecting, or at least from the industry projecting at least leap and bound by 2030. So we are actually seeking proposal to reduce the total carbon emission and while maintaining the grid reliability under this entire EV or e-mobility ecosystems. The proposal solutions has to be cost effective, has to be suitable for deployment with minimum disruptions to existing infrastructure. And what does it basically means? Singapore is pretty much in terms of this as a city, we are pretty much matured in terms of the entire electrical distribution grid network by the different infrastructures that has already been up and running. So the adoption of these electric vehicles means that the total number of electric EV chargers that is to be deployed based on the entire blueprint of the governments will actually increase the load within the grid, within the entire islands. So how do we actually manage the existing distributions without adding additional loads to it? What are the proposals that Schneider could look into to increase the use of clean energy instead, as what Amy actually earlier on in the slide has mentioned, without increasing the use of fossil fuel from the grid, from the increasing the load itself. So these are some of the challenges that so far industrial players like us has been facing. It will be a very interesting things if we could hear from the students, participants on how we could actually think out of the box to address these issues. Thank you. Thanks, Amy. Back to you.
Thanks, Ray. I think it's very informative, and I hope that gives the students a glimpse of what exactly Schneider is looking for, and then you can craft your proposals accordingly. I understand that Crystal's back online. Crystal, if you're ready, you can share more about capital infrastructure and the challenge statement.
Sorry for the loss of internet. So I think the gist of it is that Capital is looking for a smarter and more sustainable solution to improve the energy efficiency. So some of the digital ways that we are looking at probably can be data analysis using intelligent software algorithms to produce insights on how energy can be used more efficiently. So with that, we are looking at a integrate solution. We do not limit the solution to be only solar, as like what Amy mentioned, capital infrastructure. We do a full comprehensive solution out there that includes solar cooling, even electric vehicle charging, gas batteries. So these the proposed solution we would recommend to actually build a comprehensive one and try to integrate together, which in a way will help to manage the growth of the energy demand all in one building itself. But just keep in mind that you need to consider the environmental impact, the system stability, and the cost effectiveness, so that we can actually use this solution and make it real. Yeah. Thanks, Amy.
Thanks, Crystal. Yep. Thank you so much for sharing about Keppel's problem statement. Pass time over to Samcott. Sharon, you ready? You can share more about solar intermittency. Over to you.
Thanks, Amy. So just a quick sharing, maybe an introduction to who Sembcorp is. So in Singapore, we are headquartered in Singapore. So in Sembcorp, we are very focused at the moment in growing our renewables and integrated urban solutions businesses. So as part of our portfolio transformation, we want to transform our portfolio towards a greener future and bigger adoption of renewables. So in Singapore, our main renewable source comes from solar. So Sembcorp would like to seek solutions from the participants here on, as we install more solar, we notice that it introduces intermittency to the grid, because solar generation is essentially dependent on the amount of sun or solar irradiance we have. So it may result if one day the sun is shiny, all the solar panels in Singapore will be shining at the same time, and it may cause grid instability if, say, a strong cloud goes past, or if there's rain, or intermittency will occur in the grid. So I'd like to seek solutions from all of you here in how can we manage grid intermittency. So there are a few solutions we can potentially explore, like for instance, whether it's to manage the amount of energy that flows into the grid, or perhaps install batteries. So we are open to different solutions that you can come up with. So the aim here, essentially, we're looking for a solution that is cost effective, and we can minimize the impact on the grid stability, and of course something that is easy to deploy and easy to maintain for us. Yeah.
Thanks, Sharon. No problem. I think as students, you can see there's a common factor among all three of the companies, and cost effectiveness is one of the considerations to take note of. If you want to find more information from the companies, actually we have uploaded all the details into the website FAQs. You can find out more of the resources there. Like you want to know more about what exactly, what's Keppel's businesses like, what would an integration solution entail, or even, Schneider, what they're doing in the electric vehicle front, Sembcorp in the solar front, all of it has been uploaded. So you can feel free to reference to that. This recording also will be uploaded on our website in a week. So you can always rewatch. You can be able to find out more information from there. Okay. I'd like to share a bit more of the competition admin details with you. So this is just a broad timeline. We're currently right now here at this mark on 3rd June, the virtual mass briefing. At the end of this briefing, we will open up the link for the submission form. You can familiarize yourself with it to see what are the areas that will be required to submit a proposal for SEGC. The deadline for the submission is 30th June, and it will close at 5 p.m. As it's a competition, there are just some simple rules to take note of so that everybody is on the same playing field. Firstly, it's the timing itself. So at 5 o'clock, the form will close. So do try to upload before that timing. Don't upload at 4:59, just like all of our schoolwork, right? Don't wait until the last moment. A big part of it is also to declare that you have either attended this briefing live or you have watched the recording, and all members need to be able to tick that box. Maybe you see all the challenge statements are all very exciting and you want to answer them all. Thank you for your enthusiasm. But as part of the rules, it's really about each team is only able to address one of the company's specific problem statement. So among the three, choose the one that you are most interested in. Also, students are only allowed to participate in one team. So if you use your name and then join like 3 teams to be able to handle all 3 problem statements, we will only allow you to be able to submit for 1. So we would like your proposal to be saved in a deck format. You can use PowerPoint to be able to create it, but do save it in a PDF format. The reason being is that when it's in a PDF form, all your diagrams that you may be drawing, maybe you can create some prototype design to share your ideas with us, and you have text. We don't want to reach a point where, you know, maybe the diagram and the text overlap. So if you save it in PDF, everything is nicely done, and then we will not be able to have the issue as compared to if you send it to us via PowerPoint. So as one of the competition rules for fairness, every team should not exceed 7 slides. This will be a fixed and a hard rule. So when you create your PDF, if you want to do some kind of introductory slide sharing about your team members and all, you can create a separate deck on it. But the main proposal should only be 7 slides max. Everything else, maybe you have like resources, you want to share about your team members, share about your motivation and all, you can always save it separately and then you can send both to us. Submissions that deviate from any of these rules and requirements will be disqualified. So how would the submission be like? We just gave some pointers here listed below. 4 things that we'll be looking out for in the PDF deck. Firstly, we want to hear more about the selected company-specific problem statement that you have chosen and how actually is the team's plan on the approach. Secondly, what is the proposed solution that you have in mind and how it actually brings relevance to the problem statement. Thirdly is really technical feasibility of the proposed solution. And last but not least is the potential benefits and impact of the proposed solution to the company. So just now in the problem statements that the company has shared, each of them actually had 3 factors that they're really focusing into. So when we evaluate and shortlist the teams, these are the areas that we'll be looking into. So one broad aspect is really about the relevance of the proposal. So for example, for Keppel, relevance of the proposal will be environmental impact, system stability, as well as cost effectiveness. Schneider and Sembcorp, likewise, the 3 different factors altogether. And then the second area that we are looking into besides relevance is really about creativity. We encourage teams to be able to share your dreams and inspirations with us. Share with us what you would foresee the future to be like. What would Singapore's sustainable future be in these 3 different topics? We would like to hear your plans and your proposals, and then we can work together on that. Okay. So I will just draw our attention to the competition website itself, resurfacing it here over a QR code. You can take a look at it at your own time, but I will share my screen and then show you where you can be able to find the resources I talked about just now. So this is our competition website. So the broad timeline is all here. The different phases where we're into. So just now I mentioned there are quite a lot of resources that you can view. So you can go to the list of frequently asked questions and you can find out more information there. So when you click the button, it will come up here. Any details about the rules, you can take a look. And at the very bottom, actually, is all the references from the 3 different companies. So if you want to find out more information, you can always just click and read it at your own time. Hope this helps. In 1 week's time, we will upload the recording. It will be available under this tab called Training Materials. Just an idea of how the Form SG for submission will look like. So school is similar to the one that you have registered to join the virtual briefing today. The team will need to declare that all members have attended. So as long as you watch the video or have attended here live, you can click yes. Fill in the particulars. And last but not least, we wrote down the instructions here again, just to remind everybody of what the PowerPoint deck would be like. Do take note to save it in a PDF format. And these are the prompters and the instructions to help you guys along. Do take note that when you send over the shareable link to us, make sure that it's not private so that we will be able to access and to download the files accordingly. just to share about the PDF deck. So as much as possible, try to use a font that is around size 12. I know you want to squeeze as much as possible into the 7 slides maximum, but I think a big part of it is to make it readable, so that when the judges look through your slides, they really understand what you are proposing here, and they can be able to shortlist you accordingly. So don't use font size 5. It'll be very difficult to see. I know you think I'm very young and I can read it, but cannot. Okay, so try to be about size 12. Okay, that works well. Yeah, and just to reiterate again, 7 slides maximum, and the submission deadline will close on 30th June at 5 p.m. We really encourage the youth to share your inspirations and innovations with us. We want to hear more from you about how our future will be like. Okay, I'll take a pause here. We'll open the time for Q&A. So the Q&A functions at the bottom of the Zoom webinar. You can click it, you type your questions. As more questions come into it, we'll be able to answer them. Okay, I see some questions coming in. The first question is actually to Keppel. Crystal, maybe you could answer whether the proposed solution includes physical solutions. For example, like, is Keppel looking out for installation of solar panels, green facade, or more looking at IT solutions for the integrated system? Or it could be both as well. Maybe you could clarify.
Yes, we do not limit ourselves to only IT solutions, but also physical solution. I would say it would be a hybrid. And then is there any baseline building? You can use our Keppel Bay Tower as a baseline building. It includes solar, cooling, EV charging stations over there. So that would be a good building for you to work as a use case. Yeah.
Thanks, Crystal. Yeah, I hope this answers the question. There's a question about intermittency. Perhaps Sharon can share a bit more about what does it mean by managing intermittency.
All right, let me just switch on my video. Okay, so addressing the question is, what do we mean by manage intermittency? So solar generation as a source is intermittent, because if you have a gas-powered power plant, the amount of power generations depend on the amount of gas that you provide input to. So you can control if you want to step up or step down. It's just by the amount of gas that you operate. But when it comes to solar, I cannot control how much sunlight comes in, shines on the panels. I can't control if there is rain or cloud cover. So solar generation as a source is intermittent. So to manage intermittency, there are a few solutions. For instance, you can install batteries as one. As for whether the batteries are installed at the solar side or at the grid side, that's something that we can explore as part of this study. Hope this address.
Yeah. Thank you, Sharon. Okay, there's some admin questions here, so I will answer them. Where can we be able to find the slides? So in 1 week's time, we will actually upload this recording, which the recording has the slides, so you can be able to watch it. You can replay it how many times you want to, and to be able to focus on the details accordingly. The second admin question is about supporting documents. So yes, it's up to the team just to list some examples that you may consider. I think it will be nice to hear about your teammates. What is your motivation and inspiration in joining SEGC? What's your decision in choosing the challenge statement among the 3? And you can also send in the links. Like, for example, you did your research on by finding a certain article or reading a certain book, and you can add that into your resources page as well. All of this should be saved separately away from your 7 slides, so it doesn't add to your count. Hope this helps. There's also another question whether the submissions and registrations start today. So at the end of today's briefing, we will update the competition's webpage, and then from there you can be able to take a look, just as what I shared just now over the screen. Yeah. Once this ends, you can access it, no problem. We will be open all the way until 30th June 5 o'clock. There's a new question for Sembcorp. Sharon, maybe over to you. Just repeat the question. Is Sembcorp looking for a proposed solution that may include like new solar panel technologies deployment, or is it really mainly intermittency that is the main focus?
We are looking at something that combines both actually. So I'm open if there are solutions that can optimize or maximize solar deployment, but at the same time, as Singapore has more and more solar deployment, grid intermittency and solar intermittency will eventually be a likely grid problem. So ideally, we're looking for solutions that addresses both optimization solar potential and addressing grid intermittency.
Thank you, Sharon. There's a question for Schneider. Ray, maybe you could take this. Can the solution be modifying the EV charger itself?
Sorry, I was on mute. If you could hear me, basically, we would prefer that the solution will be more holistic in terms of the entire e-mobility ecosystem, rather than modifying the hardware, which it could either be a solution not only on Schneider charger, but because it could diverse to other different charger with different specification. So I think in terms of the proposal, it will be more beneficial. It could cover any aspect of so-called brand neutral or probably even hardware neutral. So the answer will be a more preferred solutions, which is not towards the charger itself.
Thanks, Ray. Yeah, I think a part about Schneider's problem statement is also to minimize disruption to the existing infrastructure. So as much as possible, if you don't need to change what's already been installed, that will be great. Hi, Sharon. I think there's one more question for you. For Sembcorp, can the solution be adding additional features to increase the existing structure efficiency?
Yep, that's fine. Yeah, so we're open to the different solutions that you have, whether it's modifying or adding on or a brand new solution.
Then the second question is also, I just repeat the question for everyone. So both Schneider Electric and Sembcorp looking for an energy storage system. So from Sembcorp point of view?
Yep, energy storage system is definitely one of the solutions we are looking at.
That's good. Thank you, Sharon. Oh, Ray's back as well. Ray, what about your take for dealing with electric vehicles?
Yep, I guess similar answer to from Sharon. It would be good that we could go towards this power storage as one of the options.
Thanks, Ray.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think also electric vehicles itself also acts like a mini energy storage system. The car itself has batteries, and when they're connected to the grid, they can also be able to supply. We call this technology vehicle to grid. So if you want to find out more information, you can search vehicle to grid. There are good questions that have been asked so far. Yep, we will just open the time a bit more. If you got more questions, you can just type into the chat. And if it's relevant to the competition details or relevant to the problem statement, we will do our best to answer them. If there are no more questions, last call. So for competition fairness, We will not address any questions that come through email. We will only answer questions that are here over the Zoom webinar. So ask all your questions now. Okay, there's some admin questions about the competition. So for the PowerPoint deck, we send it through Google Forms. Yeah, so it's actually a government form called Form SG. You can type your link there. So you can create, for example, you can choose different methods. It's all okay with us. You can upload your PowerPoint deck on Google Drive and then use the shareable link, send that link over to us through the Form SG submission. So there will be a field there. You can just copy paste. Or maybe you don't want to use Google Drive, you want to use Dropbox, also can, we accept. Or you want to use WeTransfer, we also accept. So any of the forms is fine. There's just a field there that you can upload your shareable link to. At the end of this briefing, we will make it live and then you can be able to take a look. I can just share screen now to show you again. Give me a moment. Yeah, so here at the bottom, can be able to see. So the instructions, then there's this field. So you can just type in. Okay. Yeah, hope this helps. So just provide a shareable folder link. You can use any method you prefer, Google Drive, Dropbox, WeTransfer, as long as it's not private and we can be able to view and download it. Will we answer administrative questions on email? As much as possible, if we prefer you to ask your questions today, and then we answer it directly when everybody can hear, and it's also being recorded. So for student teams that may not be joining us today and they watch the recorded briefing at their own time, they also have the same questions and the same set of answers. Is there a minimum number of members in a group? So the minimum number is 2. So as long as there's 2 and the maximum number is 4. Okay, so that helps, 2 to 4. There's a question here about what solutions are we expecting and what do we expect us to do differently from the industry. Maybe I'll take that one. I think a big part about SEGC as a competition is to really just hear from students, what are your innovations. We do know that the deadline is 30th June. So we're not looking for something like FYP where you have 1 year long to really formulate and to build a working model. A big part of it is to just hear your proposal, your idea. How do you break down the problem statement into manageable parts? What is your approach in it? If possible, you can do a drawing of your prototype. You can be able to just describe to us what is your idea and how it really tackle and addresses the challenge statements directly. I think as much as possible, focus on the challenge statement, the 3 different considerations that each of the companies have mentioned today, and to really see how your solution is able to tackle each and every one of it. That is the part that we're really looking to for relevance. And then the creativity part, we'll be seeing how is your proposed solution different from what's out there in the market. I think if you can show something new and creative, that's also still feasible in our Singapore climate. I think a big part of it is this is the Singapore Energy Grand Challenge. So try to make it contextualized for our nation. And then from there, I think we are in a good direction. Hope this helps. Oh, there's an admin question. What if accidentally submit a non-shareable link and you're able to resubmit? Yes, you can resubmit. Maybe under the team name, you just put a remark that you're resubmitting because you sent wrongly. We will just take your latest submission. But maybe if you didn't notice it was wrong and you already submitted to us, we click it and then we realize, we cannot enter. We will send you an email and let you know that we are unable to open your shared link. Yeah, so that one's all right. As long as you submit before 5 o'clock, we can still check in with you. Okay. Will the competition give any cert to help in future school? Yes, the winners in the grand final at the Youth at SEW, Singapore International Energy Week, you will get a trophy, cash prizes, as well as a certificate. Okay, maybe I'll pass the time to Ray on Schneider's question. So for grid reliability, are we referring to on or off grid or both? Is there a preference on this?
I was actually trying to answer through this, but anyway, okay. Since I'm, it's a good question. There is no boundary to ideas. If you get it off grid, I mean, energy is cleaner. If you get it on grid, then it will comes into a situation where how do you actually get the so-called energy from other sources, and where these sources actually comes from, what are the possible solution to get that so-called extra power. So these are all these form parts of the solution. So straight answer to that is you can provide both. Thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Okay, I'll answer some questions related to EMA. So one student asked about data about the grid. Actually, we have a Singapore Energy Statistics website. My colleague will type into the chat right now. But we will also upload this into the website FAQs, so you can have ready access to this at all times. So broad statistics of our system is available under this tab. But we also do not expect students to you don't need to go to that level of detail to know exactly which substation has what data. It's okay. Okay. One of the admin question is whether you can include videos in the slides. Right now, no. The plan is that the 7 slides are 7 static slides. You can put in diagrams, drawing, graphs, text. All is okay. But a video will not be suitable for the 7 slides submission. Furthermore, you will be saving it in a PDF form, so we also cannot click the video. If you want to show us a video as your additional resources, you can type that link into your supporting documents, but you will not be included into your main submission. Okay, yeah, so just to clarify, the criteria, the evaluation criteria will be really focused onto your 7-slide PDF deck. Hope this helps. Okay, the next admin question is really about whether the prototype or actual product, can it be a scaled down version of it? Yes, definitely. It will be really amazing if in a month you can create something real life. That would be awesome. But yeah, a prototype will suffice for this shortlisted round. If later on, if you're being contacted and going on to the semi-finals, over there will be also time where you can be mentored by the company leading up to the grand final, and that timing is longer, so you can be able to create something more realistic to an actual product. So the grand final will be at Youth at SEW, which is currently dated as 28th of October. So if any reason, if somebody in your team is not able to make it, we actually have hybrid options available, but we do strongly encourage that the team be able to come down physically, so that that there will be a good presentation and all. But hybrid option is something that we can explore. When we reach that stage of the competition, we can always discuss and to find ways that we can work around the logistics of this event. If you're thinking about that it may be clashing with school, I believe that most of you know our event through your school EDM. So we can also discuss with teachers what are some measures to work around, as long as it doesn't clash with some major examinations. There's a question about cost effectiveness. I know the question is related to Schneider, but perhaps I will answer this in totality, because all 3 company problem statements have cost effectiveness. As much as possible, we want to hear if you have a reasonable assessment of how much the cost of your proposal or your product will be. But if it's unable to come up with something like really detailed, it's okay. I think a big part of the proposal at this shortlisting stage is to hear your plans and your approach. So for example, maybe for cost effectiveness, you just calculate what are the areas and the items that are required for your proposal and what is it like in the market right now. And then we can be able to show us the difference and what are the savings in your proposal compared to what's on the shelf. Maybe just that helps as a broad understanding. But yeah, I will open up the time to Ray if you want to add a bit more about Schneider and what you're looking at for cost effectiveness. Feel free.
For Schneider, nothing much. It really depends on how or what kind of ideas the participant actually put it in. So it's participant, but just to echo Amy's comment, it would be good that if the participant could demonstrate how this helps in terms of the cost savings, projecting a understanding from the participant that how does all this data actually comes about. So it will probably add points to the entire presentation. Thank you.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think we're aligned on that as well. Great. There's a question. I think this is pretty interesting. If the team is able to do a 3D model animation, I think that would be beautiful. But for standardization, the main deck of 7 slides should be a photo of it. So you can put your link of your 3D model animation video into your supporting documents. We can also take a look there. But the main part of it is really looking at the 7 slide to be fair to everybody. Thanks for asking this. There's a question on whether is it necessary to make a prototype or is it recommended? I would say it's recommended, but it's not a necessity. You will not be disqualified if you don't have a prototype. It's okay. Just simple drawing helps to, visuals help to share better than just text. Yeah, but it's not required. Hope this helps. Okay, just checking if there are any last questions. All the links that we shared today will be available on our competition website itself. And the additional link about the Singapore energy statistics, we'll type it into the website FAQs, so feel free to look at it at any time. Once this recording is uploaded onto our webpage, we will send all the reps that have keyed in their details for today's webinar. We will let you know when the recording is uploaded so that you can inform your teammates and then everybody can watch together and start brainstorming. There's a good question that just came in. Is the solution expected to be visionary system-wise or like a particular device or service? We are open to both areas as long as it really tackles and addresses the challenge statement. So for example, Keppel's one, they managed to narrow it down to be a building. So that's not very systems-wide, but on the building specific. But I would think Schneider as well as Sembcorp's problem statement can also include about system-wide options. So both are possible. Okay, I will just wait a few more seconds if there is any other question. If you face any technical difficulties when submitting the form, you can type an email to us. Our address is inside on the main web page. As much as possible, we try to list out all the possible questions into the FAQs. So you can refer to that as your first option. And if you still got further questions or like technical difficulties and all, we can be able to address them over email. If it's questions that are already been addressed during this recording, we will just refer you to this webinar as well. Okay, I think that is the end of the FAQs. Thank you so much for all the questions that have been asked today. I'm really excited when I hear your enthusiasm for SEGC. And I'm just excited to hear what are the proposals that you have in mind. Start cracking on your brain juices and to see how it goes. Yeah, EMA and companies will love to hear more about your innovations and your proposals, and we can shortlist teams, and we hope that we can be able to provide mentoring opportunities and training opportunities for you, and to make it meaningful, not only for what you learn in school, but also relevant for the real world out there. Okay, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you companies, Keppel, Schneider, as well as Sembcorp for joining us for this virtual mass briefing. Look forward to your proposals. Have a good day. Bye.